Hey class, so I'm going to go over drawing flats this week. And so I'll introduce the assignment to you and then I will do some demonstration for you. Okay, so here is our first drawing flats assignment. It includes 10 garments that you'll be drawing both the front and the back of the garment. And so before I draw each of these garments, I like to find them online, take a look at them, and just kind of observe them before I end up drawing them. So the two garments I'm going to draw are the swimsuit and also the pants, or the jeans. So what I would do at first is I just take a look at the garment, generally get an idea of how it fits. And the whole time I'm drawing my garment, I'll constantly refer back to these images as I'm drawing them. So just observing kind of how it fits on the body, where all the seams end, all the garment details. You can see there's a seam across the bust. It kind of hits the middle of the chest where that bow is. Three seams across the waist and the torso, these cutouts, and then, kind of seeing how tight it is and where it hits on the hips. Now look at the back, just get a little bit of observation from here, seeing where the straps hit, generally how it fits. And then there's one more picture, so I thought I'd take a look at that one too to help me where I can see it in full color. It's a lot harder with the black and white or the black color to see what it looks like. Okay, the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to pull up the flat drawing template to let you guys see what we're going to use for this assignment. Okay, so the flat drawing template is just like what we used for the croquis last week, but it's just for flats. So it's just the sort of shape of the body without a person wearing the clothes. So this we're going to use for all the flats. You always trace this off before drawing the clothing on top of it, or some people will leave this under their paper and use it the whole time that they're sketching. In this week's module, I have two sample flat documents, the front of the garments and the back. So let me pull it up and go over what some of the requirements for flats are. So these are flats that are done by a previous student of mine. I think they're all really beautifully drawn, have a nice amount of detail, and you can all achieve at flats at this level. So the real purpose of a flat is to accurately represent the fit of a garment to an audience. And a lot of times this is for marketing materials or for internal for actual production and garment design. So we want the garment to actually fit and look like it is being worn by an invisible person. So if we look through the garment, we can see the back of the neckline. Instead of missing that area, we actually see it. So that's the whole invisible person concept. So it represents the fit of a person, but also kind of looks like it's laying flat on the table at the same time. So that's how we see that back section of the neck. It includes all the details, so every little bit of stitching, seams gets included in the drawing. It also looks, like it's wrapping around the body and fitting nicely. So we see those sort of soft curves at the bottom of the hem. We don't want it to look like it's a paper doll garment. We want to look like it's for a real person. And here are some backs. So you can see we have that soft curve curving down at the base of the garment, the back of the neck. And because we're looking from the back, we don't end up seeing that front neckline. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and draw the swimsuit for you guys. This took me 12 minutes to draw after having already traced the croquis or the flat tracing tool. So I'm going to speed up my video just to make it a little easier for you to watch. But just know it took me about 12 minutes if that helps you anticipate time a little bit. So I normally start with the front of the garment, and I'm going to start by just generally kind of getting some of the shaping and the early details into the garment. I like to get the fit first so that if I make any mistakes, I make it too tight or too loose, or there's some, areas that don't match, I can correct them before I do all the little bitty garment details. The bust had kind of a specific fit. I thought it needed to sit right underneath the bust level. And so I started to draw that first and then try to get in some of the waistline. I thought these cutouts were important, so I started doing them early too. And then as you guys know, like swimsuits with a little bit higher leg cut are popular right now. So I ended up changing the general shape of the initial leg shape on this flat tracing tool, and I raise the leg a little bit on the drawing. And some of these extra lines that I see, if I don't need them as I'm working through the drawing, I go ahead and erase them, but I always think it helps to start with more information than less at the beginning of your drawing. So here's where I'm cutting up the leg a little higher. And then I'm going to go ahead and move on to the back. So again, the back, we see the lower, covers the butt, so we see the lower shape. Then we end up mirroring that in the front too. So the back on that garment, on the swimsuit, kind of scooped down for this big circular sort of scoop back on the back of the garment. The ties that kind of went across the back. And then we had that cross back strap. And again, I have my computer to the left of me, and I'm looking at the garment the whole time that I'm drawing, and I'm constantly flipping between the images. Okay, now that I've gotten both of these garments, the front and the back drawn, I'm going to continue with this idea of the invisible person. So when I see the front of the garment, I actually can see through all the way to the back. So you would see the way the straps cross in the back, and then you would see the, the back of the swimsuit that fits over the butt. And then the same with the back. If we look at the back of the swimsuit, we would see the way that the straps sit in the front and where they land at the bust, and then we would see the top of the swimsuit looking from the back too. We would even see all the way kind of through to those cutouts, which makes this garment a little bit more challenging than initially when you first see it from the front. And so I'm trying to erase away any of those initial drawing lines. We never want to have it with the arms or the neck inside of it. We want the garment just by itself. Adding in a little bit more detail I missed, so putting those bows on the front of the garment. And then again from the back, we can actually see all the way through to see the cutouts on the front of the garment. Now I'm going to use my markers I had you guys use before, and I start with the lightest one every time. So what I'm actually going to do is use the markers to identify what's the back of the garment or the opposite side of the garment. So any of these areas that we identified as the back, I end up shading them in. So the back of the leg or the butt area, and then the chest where we see the cutouts, as well as from the front view, that cutout in the back, and then the top of the bust. So I shade those in. And then I'm going to go back with my softer pencil to bring back some of the detail that got lost a little bit in the shading process, and just bring some of the detail back so I can see every little garment detail with a lot of clarity. So when I go to grade your assignment, just remember that the most important part of the flats is the garment detail. So look very, very closely at the photos of the real garments and take a lot of time to observe them and make sure you get all the garment details. There's often a lot more on like my second pass at looking at the garment that I see than on my first initial view. So take your time, constantly observe the garment as you draw it. Okay, I'll go ahead and do one more sample for you guys, and it's this pair of jeans because these have a lot of stitching on them. So I thought that would be another example of kind of something we'll do commonly in this class. So these jeans, just taking a look at them for a few minutes before I start my drawing, just observing anything I can notice about them. They're high-waisted, they have pockets in the back, they have a yoke in the back. They're a little bit cropped, so they're not full length down to the complete, the shoe. There's a lot of stitching at the waist and top stitching at the hem. So things I'm going to consider moving forward. So at this point, I'm going to start with just the pants tracing tool. I only traced off that because I don't need more information. I don't need the shirt or anything, but I am going to shorten the pants. So I generally like to sketch out how long I think they are, and I'm not always right the first time around, so I'll always re-sketch it if I make a mistake. So I always start by generally getting the fit of the pants, especially a pair of pants like this that's really wide. Sometimes it takes a little bit of effort to get just the right wideness of the leg. Making that soft curve at the hem. I don't want it to be straight. That's when it looks like it's a little paper doll outfit. I want it to look like it was kind of wrapping around the body. And even though these are high-waisted pants, you'll see that your tracing tool goes like all the way up above the natural waist. These sit just below the natural waist, so I drew it just below that, that rectangle at the top. So because these are like a shaped waistband, I drew the back of the pant where if this was being worn by an invisible person, it would sit a little bit higher on their back of their waist than on the front. Going ahead and adding in the belt loops. And typically with wide leg pants, the wide part of the pant is actually added to the outside of the pant, like the hip, and the inside of the leg is still remains kind of straight. So you can see that in the center, the pants don't cross over each other. They stay really close next to one another at the hem. And I realized my pants, I thought they were a little long. I wanted them to be a little more cropped, so I'm going to shorten them a little bit. Drawing that soft curve at the hem. And I thought that little area at the hip needed to be straightened out a little bit. It looked a little bit lumpy. So fixing that up, erasing any of that extra markings I no longer need. So stitching is a big part of garment detail. And if you think about the ratio of how tiny stitches would be on a garment compared to how the size on these drawings we're doing, just remember you want to make them as small as possible. It's not really possible for us to accurately represent the scale of a stitch on something like this small, but the smaller you can get it, the more accurate it will look. Pants often have a hem like that, so I did the stitching right along the hem where it's supposed to be. And then there's also top stitching at the top of the waist, the bottom of the waist, along the fly of the pants, and kind of on and around the belt loops. And then I'm going to shade in the back of the waist just like I did with the swimsuit. And then I can also think about other areas to shade, which I'll do in a little bit. Thinking about the idea of overlapping and creating shadow from parts of the garment standing out. So you think about the fly of your pants as two separate pieces, same with the belt loops. So I end up doing a little shadow around where the belt loops would cast a shadow and then right next to the fly. I'm going to go with a little bit of a darker pencil or pen because I felt like it could get a little bit more shaded. I use a light pad to do my tracing, and because these pants are pretty specific in their width, I normally would just draw them again, but they're so specific that I think I would spend more time trying to redraw them. So instead, I'm just folding the paper in half, matching my tracing tool right to where the pants I just drew were, and I'm just going to trace my pants I just drew to make the back, because I want them to be essentially the exact same size. Okay, so the back of pants are a little different from the front. The back of the waist ends up sort of curving upward versus the front, which ends up scooping downward. And I don't need any of this extra information, like the lines anymore. They helped me initially, but I don't need them now, so I'm going to go ahead and erase them. This pair of pants also has a yoke, which helps shape the pants to the body. So you can see we have that initial waistband, and then we have the sort of peaked yoke beneath it that I'm about to draw. I also tend to, someone help my hair in this video. It's really bad. It's like sticking up off the top of my head. It's terrible. Um, when I'm drawing the pockets, try to make sure I center them nicely above, underneath the yoke, and so that they sit nicely right where they should be, like kind of right in the middle of the back of the pants. Getting them in the right place is important. So adding in the detail on the back with my soft pencil, bringing it back in. So I had 3 belt loops in the back, the yoke, the pockets, and then there's a lot of top stitching that goes into this garment, so I'll add that last. Alright, so here's a finished pair of pants. Hopefully that helped you guys get you started with the first two. These pair of pants took me about 15 minutes to draw. So good luck working on these. Let me know if you have any questions. And we'll continue building off the flats with more challenging flats next week. And this will be really the main focus of the class. The rest of the class will be focusing on flats.